We're back looking at Jehu, the Lord's hitman. You've seen how God has raised him up to be a hitman to the house of Ahab. And what you're going to see in chapter 10 is Jehu's holocaust against Baalites. And just a quick review, Jehu is 10th king of Israel. Name means he shall be. He reigns 28 years during the reigns of Athaliah and Joash of Judah. His father is Jehoshaphat, son of Nimshi. His prophet is Elijah, and that young prophet that Elijah sent to him. And he kills the whole house of Ahab and King Ahaziah. He destroys Baal worship, and he was an army commander. And you can find him in 2 Kings 9 through 10 and 2 Chronicles 22, 7 through 12. And he founded the longest lived dynasty of the northern kingdom. And we've already seen how he's the Lord's hitman because he's a deadly captain. He was feared. You see that in chapter 9, 1 through 14. He devises a plan. He does a surprise attack, is what he wants to do. He discerns the spirits. He knows that the house of Ahab is not peaceful. They're bloody. We saw how he's determined to slay. And now we go to chapter 10, and we're going to see how he devastates the house of Ahab with letters. And Ahab had 70 sons in Samaria, and Jehu wrote letters. Kind of like, somebody can send you a letter, and what's in it can scare you more than anything. Just anything you see, just what they wrote in the letter could scare you more than anything. Maybe a threatening letter or something. He wrote letters and sent to Samaria and to the rulers of Jezreel, to the elders, and to them that brought up Ahab's children. Like the Zodiac killer. He was sending letters and stuff to the police and things like that. And those things were scary things, the things he was sending. A lot of killers do that. Jehu was such an intimidating guy, he could devastate you with letters. Now, as soon as this letter cometh to you, seeing your master's sons are with you, and there are with you chariots and horses, a fenced city also, and armor. He's like, you guys, you got all this stuff here. So what's stopping you to come out and fight me? He says, look even out the best and meetest of your master's sons, and set him on his father's throne, and fight for your master's house. He wants the best and meetest, the most worthy ones to come out and fight him. And that he's a hitman. He's not afraid of anything. He wants to beat the best. He knows if he's going to be the best, he's got to beat the best. So as the Lord's hitman, he devastated them with letters, and he's daring in battle. He's not afraid of anything. He says, look even out the best and meetest. Bring it on. Bring the best that you got. Look what it says. You see, these letters scared them to death, but they were exceedingly afraid just from this letter. And said, behold, 2 kings stood not before him. He done killed Jehoram and Ahaziah. How then shall we stand? You see, Jehoram and Ahaziah done fell by Jehu. And see, they have no, they're not showing any confidence in the Lord whatsoever. And why would they? They haven't been serving the Lord. And see, when you are not been serving the Lord and you get in a mess, you're not going to have very much confidence in the Lord that he's going to get you out of the mess. But you see, if they had been serving the Lord all this time, the righteous are bold as a lion. They'd have been like, okay, we'll get our best guys together. We'll meet you today. And they would have stood against him. You see, when you have the truth, you can stand. Ephesians 6:14, have your loins girt about with truth. And, having done all to stand, as Paul talks about. And they were exceedingly afraid. And they said, how shall we stand? How are we going to stand against Jehu? He's a deadly army commander. We're no match for him. And Jehu is determined to slay, and he's doing all he can to get rid of the house of Ahab. He's dreadful to his victims. As the Lord's hitman, he's dreadful to his victims. They're exceedingly afraid. Just by the letters. They'd not even been in his presence yet. And they are exceedingly afraid. And he that was over the house, and he that was over the city, the elders also, and the bringers up of the children, sent to Jehu, saying, We are thy servants, and will do all that thou shalt bid us. We will not make any king. Do thou that which is good in thine eyes. So they're pretty much surrendering. The bringers up of the children, they're guardians of these sons of Ahab. They sent to Jehu, saying this, saying, We are thy servants. We will do all that thou shalt bid us. They're just scared to death, surrendering. They're not even going to make a king to go against him. They're just going to let him be the king. And that's no fun for Jehu, really. He's wanting an outright battle. He's wanting a man to stand up against him. Probably like Goliath was looking for a man to stand up against him, a real man. So it says, Then he wrote another letter. He's just devastating them with letters. He wrote a letter the second time to them, saying, If you be mine, and if you will hearken unto my voice, prove it, take ye the heads of the men, your master's sons. So he wants these bringers up of the children, the guardians, the ones that looked after the sons of Ahab, to cut their heads off and bring them to him. And he's doing this by letters. He's convinced them to do this by letters. Now the king's sons, being 70 persons, were with the great men of the city, which brought them up. And I guarantee you they weren't bringing them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. They weren't training them up in the way they should go. These were wicked Baal worshippers. And it came to pass when the letter came to them that they took the king's sons and slew 70 persons and put their heads in baskets and sent them to Jezreel. So just by letters, just by sending letters, Jehu got these men who were basically their fathers to cut off the heads of these 70 sons of Ahab. And look at the control and power of this man Jehu. He could have been the greatest king after David that Israel ever had, if he kept up doing what God wanted him to do. You see, he's dreadful to his victims. He got them to do whatever he wanted them to do. He blackmailed them into doing it. And there came a messenger and told him, saying, They have brought the heads of the king's sons. And he said, Lay ye them in 2 heaps at the entering in of the gate until the morning. So imagine that, all these heads just laying there at the entering in of the gate. And it came to pass in the morning that he went out and stood and said to all the people. So he's out there next to all them heads, and he says, Ye be righteous. He's like, saying, You're worthy to judge this matter. Ye be righteous. Behold, I conspired against my master and slew him. He slew his own king. He was the army commander. He was seen as somebody who was supposed to protect the king, but he was anointed to slay the house of Ahab, so he conspired against his master and slew him. He admits that, and he says, You be righteous. I did that to my master, but who slew all these? He's saying, you're no better than I am. I killed my master, but you just killed 70 people. And really, Jehu's the one that killed him, because he's the one that sent the letters intimidating them into killing him. That's how slick he is. And just like in the last chapter, he devises a plan. You're going to see over and over, he devises a plan. He's the Lord's hitman. And he says, Know now that there shall fall unto the earth nothing of the word of the Lord. Look at that. He's a Bible believer at this point. It's kind of like in 1 Samuel 3:19, where Samuel let none of his words fall to the ground. And Jehu is confident because he knows he's got the Lord on his side here. He may not be the greatest saint in the world. He's a rough character, but he knows he's got the word on his side. And when you got the word on your side, you can have boldness. And you've got a whole lot more of the word than Jehu ever thought about having. Know now that there shall fall unto the earth nothing of the word of the Lord, which the Lord spake concerning the house of Ahab. For the Lord hath done that which he spake by his servant Elijah. So he knew what Elijah said, and he believed it. So Jehu slew all that remained of the house of Ahab in Jezreel, and all his great men, and his kinsfolk, and his priests, until he left him none remaining. He didn't have to do the job. He did everything. So Jehu slew them. Jehu's the one that slew them because he sent the letter that provoked the killing. So he's the real killer in this. And he arose and departed and came to Samaria, and as he was at the shearing house in the way, Jehu met him with the brethren of Ahaziah, king of Judah, and said, Who are ye? And they answered, We are the brethren of Ahaziah. Wrong answer, because he's killing all these people associated with Ahab and Ahaziah. And it says, And we go down to salute the children of the king and the children of the queen. So as soon as they said that, they put themselves in danger of death. And he said, Take them alive. And they took them alive and slew them at the pit of the shearing house, even 42 men, neither left he any of them. So he's ruthless. He's not having any mercy. He's not like Saul, who thought he knew more than the Lord and was showing mercy on people who the Lord didn't want him showing mercy on. Jehu is exterminating the entire house of Ahab. No mercy. He's a ruthless killing machine. He's more ruthless than Boaz was before he met his wife. And when he was departed thence, he lighted on Jonadab, the son of Rechab, coming to meet him, and he saluted him. And Jonadab was like a well-respected guy, and by Jehu getting with Jonadab, it's just a good look for him, a good political look for him. Jonadab, the son of Rahab, coming to meet him, and he saluted him and said to him, Is thine heart right, as my heart is with thy heart? And Jonadab answered, It is. And he says, If it be, give me thine hand. You see, he's saying, we're in agreement. And if we're in agreement, let's shake hands on it. This is where you get shaking hands from. Give me thine hand. And he gave him his hand, and he took up to him into the chariot. And he said, Come with me and see my zeal for the Lord. Now you're going to see the downfalls of Jehu. He's like, Come with me and see my zeal for the Lord. So they made him ride in this chariot. So see, what's the problem with Jehu? He's a good killer, but he knows it. He's not relying on the Lord. He thinks he's doing this all on his own. And he's doing well in exterminating the house of Ahab. But the problem is that he knows it. He says, Come see my zeal for the Lord. And when he came to Samaria, he slew all that remained unto Ahab in Samaria, till he had destroyed him, according to the saying of the Lord, which he spake to Elijah. And Jehu gathered all the people together, and said unto them, Now watch this. He's devising another plan. And this is the next thing. Jehu is a good hitman for the Lord, because he's deceptive and subtle. And the Lord will use men like this to get judgment on a people. He's deceptive and he's subtle. Watch what he does. When he came to Samaria, he slew all that remained unto Ahab in Samaria, till he had destroyed him, according to the saying of the Lord, which he spake to Elijah. And Jehu gathered all the people together, and said unto them, Ahab served Baal a little, but Jehu shall serve him much. Jehu is not going to serve Baal. He's being deceptive here. He says, Now therefore call unto me all the prophets of Baal, all his servants and all his priests, and let none be wanting, for I have a great sacrifice to do to Baal. Whosoever shall be wanting, he shall not live. But Jehu did it in subtlety, to the intent that he might destroy the worshippers of Baal. So what he's wanting is to get all the prophets of Baal, all the servants of Baal, all the priests of Baal. Let none be wanting. Don't let any be left out, because he's going to kill them all. He wants them all in the same place to kill them. He's devising a plan. He's deceptive and subtle, and he's pretending to be a Baal worshiper himself to get them all together. And he's going to kill them all, doing it in subtlety. And Jehu said, Proclaim a solemn assembly for Baal. And they proclaimed it. And Jehu sent through all Israel, and all the worshippers of Baal came, so that there was not a man left that came not. And they came into the house of Baal, and the house of Baal was full from one end to another. You couldn't find an empty pew in there. I mean, it was a packed house. And he said unto him that was over the vestry, bring forth vestments for all the worshippers of Baal. And he brought them forth vestments, kind of like what the Catholic Church wears, the religious clothing, the vestments, and like the black stuff, and probably very creepy looking people that's devil possessed. You can probably see it in their eyes. They're Baal worshippers. And Jehu went and Jonadab the son of Rechab into the house of Baal, and said unto the worshippers of Baal, search and look that there be with you none of the servants of the Lord, but the worshippers of Baal only. So they're like, they got this big group of Baal worshippers together, and they want to make sure that there's no servants of the Lord in there, so that they don't get killed along with the worshippers of Baal. Because see, you go around hanging with the worshippers of Baal, what's going to happen? You're going to end up getting killed with them, even though you're not one of them. You don't want to hang out with the wrong crowd. They're just going to have you killed eventually. And when they went in to offer sacrifices of burnt offerings, Jehu appointed 80 men without, and said, if any of the men whom I have brought in your hands escape, he that letteth him go, his life shall be for the life of him. So if they let any of these Baal worshippers go, then they're going to get killed, just like that Baal worshipper would have got killed. You see, Jehu is a ruthless killer. He's going to get this done no matter the cost. And it came to pass, as soon as he had made an end of offering the burnt offering, that Jehu said to the guard and to the captains, go in and slay them, let none come forth. And they smote them with the edge of the sword. And the guard and the captains cast them out, and went to the city of the house of Baal. You see, they didn't let any of them escape. They killed all of them. Got all the Baal worshippers in one place and killed them all. Now look what he's going to do. And they brought forth the images out of the house of Baal and burned them. So they're going into this house of Baal, getting all their religious stuff, all their false gods, burning them, burning the images. They break down the image of Baal and break down the house of Baal and made it a draft house, and to this day, just an outhouse. Thus Jehu destroyed Baal out of Israel. Jehu destroyed Baal out of Israel. He could have been the greatest king Israel ever had, because he destroyed Baal out of Israel. Howbeit from this, now look, but here's the downfall. Here's another downfall of Jehu. He does well in executing, but he departs not from the sins of Jeroboam. Howbeit from the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin, Jehu departed not from after them, to wit, the golden calves that were in Bethel and that were in Dan. Remember, Jeroboam made that false religion. He made it up to contend with the real religion, the good religion. And he made those golden calves. And you see, I guess Jehu grew up with that stuff. And although he was against Baal, he had a heart for those golden calves. Baal was associated with the house of Ahab, so he wanted rid of that. You see, it's a political move, kind of. You see, Baal was associated with the house of Ahab. He wanted rid of that, but he didn't want rid of those golden calves. He departed not after the sins of Jeroboam, to wit, the golden calves that were in Bethel and that were in Dan. And the Lord said unto Jehu, because thou hast done well in executing that which is right in mine eyes, and hast done unto the house of Ahab according to all that was in mine heart, thy children of the fourth generation shall sit on the throne. So he's rewarded for the good that he did do. He done well in executing as the Lord's hitman, but he departed not from the sins of Jeroboam. But Jehu took no heed to walk in the law of the Lord God of Israel with all his heart, for he departed not from the sins of Jeroboam, which made Israel to sin. In those days the Lord began to cut Israel short. And Hazael smote them in all the coasts of Israel, from Jordan eastward, all the land of Gilead, the Gadites, and the Reubenites, and the Manassites, from Aror, which is by the river Arnon, even Gilead and Bashan. Now the rest of the acts of Jehu, and all that he did, and all his might, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel? You'll see that, 2 Chronicles 22, 7 through 12. And Jehu slept with his fathers, and they buried him in Samaria. And Jehoahaz his son reigned in his stead. And the time that Jehu reigned over Israel and Samaria was 28 years. So Jehu, the Lord's hitman, he was a deadly captain. He devised a plan. He could discern the spirits. He was determined to slay. He devastated them with letters. He was daring in battle. He wanted the best and most and the meatest of them to come come fight him. He was dreadful to him. He scared him to death with those letters. He was deceptive and subtle. He did well in executing. The Lord said himself, you did well in executing. But what was his downfall? He said, come see my zeal for the Lord. He knew he was good. And he departed not from the sins of Jeroboam. He got rid of Baal, but he kept the golden calves. And he dies after a 28-year reign. And, you know, the Lord began to cut Israel short. In those days, the Lord began to cut Israel short. You see, it was a progressive thing. And, you know, in 721 BC, they go away into captivity. In 2 Kings 17, 16 through 21, you can read about that. But they begin to be cut short 160 years before they are completely done for. So it's not a swift judgment. You see, Ecclesiastes 8:11 talks about how, you know, because sentence against the evil work is not executed speedily, therefore it's fully set in the hearts of men to do evil. But Jehu could have been the greatest king, ends up being a wicked king.